Morning, it's Chad Stevens from Whitetail Woodcraft. This morning we're going to do a little video on e-scouting and e-scouting for deer sign, and this is my friend Mark Tarantini.
Good morning.
From he's a Canadian country singer, and he's been kind enough to invite me to his camp, and we've already done this. We've been out on the ground and done this a weekend or two ago, and but I just want to go over a few things to help people understand how to use e-scouting. We're using Google Maps. It's a free app, and basically it'll superimpose map and satellite imagery on the same photo, and you're able to go through the program, and you can select positions. Basically, look, we've got their camp on here and some property lines and different areas that, from looking at the topographical or the satellite imagery, I figured might be good possibilities for deer funnels due to the terrain and features. Like going around lakes and picking out elevated positions with oak trees and things like that would probably be good area to look. And we just explored some new areas there a couple of weekends ago.
I invited you essentially, and I think only because I really wanted to see what you see, and I think we learned that a couple of weekends ago. You actually went and selected a spot for us that you said, if it was me, this is where I would go, and you so it's,
yeah.
I don't know if it's highlighted here specifically, but you kind of said, I was looking, and you made your best guess, and hopefully we'll go back there today, right? Is that plan? And
yep.
See the things that we had success finding. I don't think we've seen that much deer sign until you discovered, you were walking through the woods, and I think one of your best quotes was like, we're on a major trail, and all of a sudden you said, well, you don't see anything walking the trail. And we started overland, right? And all of a sudden, boom, you'll see it probably firsthand. You saw, was it an old beaver pond or something, wouldn't you? But just swamp, and all of a sudden but I don't have that kind of experience, and that guy does. And so I'm a teacher, but I will take a lesson any day. And that's the reason we're doing this. So you went scouted right away, right?
Yeah. So basically what we're doing here is using Google Maps, and I'm not going to go over the technical aspects of plotting waypoints and things like that. I'm more of a boots on the ground kind of guy.
Yeah.
I'll use my GPS and go out there and you get the first thing to save yourself a lot of trouble is to go to locations in the area or known roads, things like that, and plot some waypoints so you can tell where they are in relation to the area you are when you get back in the bush. Because when it comes right down to it, you're going to have to get out there physically and see it and know how to get in and out of it. So
because you had a spot picked out for us, say, last weekend,
yeah,
or whatever that was, and then as it turned out, we went to that spot, right? It wasn't quite what we expected, and all of a sudden, but based on other terrain, you sort of followed a path that led us into lots of sign.
Yeah, and you never know until you get out there. And part of understanding what I can tell you most about using satellite imagery is I've done a lot of it timber cruising and for hunting purposes as well. And it takes a little practice, a little bit of work with it. You need to learn, just look at your home and area around it first, say, or an area that you're familiar with, and look at the different features, the vegetation features. Like it basically shows different shades of colors and a pattern of vegetation, and it's difficult to know what that is unless you've actually been there. So, like, for instance, the difference between just like one type of conifer or another, like maybe spruce or pine or cedar, like which grows in a swamp. So, there's a subtle difference in the pattern and coloration that you need to learn the difference of. And the same thing between hardwoods such as maple and oak or poplar. They've got a different shade, and you got to realize that these satellite imagery, it's been flowing. It's not actually satellite imagery, or pardon me, it is, but it's flown over at different times. And for instance, this map is showing two colors, a shade, a different shade line right up it. It's the difference between a clear day and an overcast day. Right? So things like that you need to know. And what I've seen here, what's drawn me in here is I've looked at this area, and I wanted to try. I realized there's an elevation area in here, and a couple of lakes. And in this area that we're hunting, mark hunts, I'm gonna determine is actually is fairly difficult hunting. There's not a high deer population, and it's a lot of conifer. Conifer, tag aller, poplar, fairly low area in general, and it's just interspersed with some oak ridges and things like that, which is key for feed in this area. So we're out of the farmland. So basically, what we're looking for is some variation, cleared areas. So what's drawn me into this area is, first of all, some lakes and a little bit of elevation with oak line, and then there's an interesting area right here. I hope we can pick it up with the focus, but it's I'm looking at it from experience-wise, and I realize that there's a lot of curved ridges and cleared areas, and it's either a marsh, a field, and because of the curves in the ridges, I'm assuming it's either old receding shorelines from receding from the glacial period, Wisconsin glacier period around 12,000 years ago, or it's old beaver dams. And then actually, when we got out on the ground, it was old beaver dams and marshes. So ideal, there's a change in vegetation there with some different browses that that's drawn deer in the area, and basically we've gone in there and found some of the main travel ways. And
it was interesting for me because I would not have recognized those, as you said. Oh no, this is a beaver run right here. This is an old and I would not have recognized that, right? And then until somebody points it out to you, and that's the mentorship program that kind of like, and that's the reason I want to be out there, because you say, no, this is what's going on here. I know you might even recognize, he said, some old cut lines too. Was kind of working off of that one spur we were on, right?
Yeah.
And no, just interesting because you see it from
some old logging roads and things that are coming in there.
We look at it and you kind of go, no, this has been logged somewhere in here. You can see this looks like all those kind of things, right? It's just nice to somebody read the bush like that for you.
Yeah, just from working in the bush every day and logging, and when I move into a new area and I set it up, there's not too many places there hasn't been loggers before in the last 150 years here in Canada. So we, you can find the high ground and the old pathways that they use and reopen them. And to me, it's like a book to me. I get in there and I see them right away. I just see the difference in you see a straight line of big trees. Well, something's happened there that,
We've noticed,
like 50 years ago, there was a road or a trail there, or a tote road.
It's interesting because you did say that when we were in the woods. You kind of said, listen, there aren't too many places that you can go that somebody hasn't been, and all of a sudden you started picking off the sign. Obviously somebody's, this used to be something this way. This is well, it's an old
old homestead.
Oh, I've seen the photos. Yeah, dude. Yeah.
And the beaver activity is interesting too. As you can see where they're all dry right now, but you can see where the old dams were. As they move up the elevation, and they've scooped out mud and piled it up. It's just slightly higher here and there.
I'm always
or almost like a ditch line where they dug it out and for a little extra water depth, and they're pulling their poplar tops and their brush. That's what they use to ferry their brush back and forth to the dam. So,
And I always, I drop a waypoint when I see you get excited. You said, if it was me, that's when my waypoint goes down. If it was hunting here, come follow, right? If I was betting a man, and you found a couple of those spots that we're going back to, right?
yeah.
And you know, again, you're right. It's a low density deer, but you're giving me your best guess, and that's what we were hoping for, and I love that, right?
And so what I explained to Mark is lots of times people are attracted to the main focus of deer activity, which is very important because you need to know where your does and fawns are. However, if you want to, zero in on your buck, you need to find that main travel area where the high concentration of activity is and move back in the cover. The nearest cover, say 100 to 150 yards downwind of it, that's where I usually look. And I start looking there, and sometimes I go back further than that. Depending on how thick the area is, at times it's that affects your visibility, the density of the vegetation and the whatnot, and the distances involved. But
no, that was a cool bit because you actually called both. My son was with us. Matt came in as well, and you said, okay, all right, where would you look for the buck in this year? If you got some, there might be some sign, but where are you going to look for the buck? And then you go from your immediate to start thinking, where's the best cover, right? But it's that kind of thing. If you're a beginner hunter, and I've hunted, but I've certainly not been in the woods like you have. But it's good to hear those things, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you add that to my little bank of knowledge, and I'm now next time I'm scouting, I might find something, but I'm going to start looking around at that next level of vegetation and start to think, right?
yeah,
Where am I going?
And basically, it's if you want to zero in on the dominant buck in the area, it takes some exploration sometimes. Sometimes what you first see, the first buck sign you see, is not the dominant buck. It's the quite often in the more open areas or at the edge of heavy cover, swamp and field edge or whatever. You'll watch it and it's the less dominant bucks, the year and a half olds and the 2.5 that are causing the most amount of rub sign and paw sign.
Speaking of rubs, because I know, I asked you to do this. We went to another spot. That's a good story in itself. Was that 2 or 3 years old? Bob shot his buck in a spot that you and I in another section, on a different farm. We went and I asked you to come down and look, right? And the day we went out, you spotted some does in this one, and guess where that buck came in? Was exactly there, right? That year that Bob shot his buck, exactly there. But and I think we spotted rubs, and we spot rubs on that. We'll see rubs today. Do you hunt those rubs?
Yeah.
Am I? Yeah, you do.
Yeah, quite often I do. I'll spend my time on a rub line. I'm not a scrape line hunter as much. I mean, it's important. When I see scrapes and lick sticks and things like that, and there's another thing to watch for. Your overhead lick branch. How high is it, and how heavy a limb is it, and if it's broken, it takes a good buck to break that with its antler. If it's been twisted with an antler, you got a big it's an 8-pointer or better.
Yeah,
and that's typically you don't see that with the younger deer.
Mm-hmm.
And
no, I mean I was getting excited when we found some moose sign for sure, and that's nice. But also we feel like you led us into a spot where we started to kind of get our spidey senses go. We were starting to feel like, hey, this feels right.
Yeah.
And you said, and that's so. I mean, we're going to go back. We're definitely going to be set up in those areas that you scouted for us come fall, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of part of the plan in the next little while here. It's May, just to kind of get set up, and I know I'm going to employ your turkey blind you did in a segment there that corded turkey blind thing because of where we're at, we probably can't. I can't haul a stand all the way in there.
Yeah. Yeah, those are easy. Those 5 by 12 foot perforated punch leaf sort of blinds, and I rig up 2 of them with paracord, to firm up the top edge, and you can, 3 or 4 trees, you can wrap them around, and you instant blind, and for deer hunting, I've used them in open areas, and if you string them basically to eye level, and they're pretty concealing, and I've had good luck with them. You just wait till his head's behind a tree or whatever, and then you just put your rifle over that top rope and let it sag a little bit, and you're good to go. And I've had them come by me at 25 yards and less, and not even clue into me. So, I'm confident that that's enough to get the job done, and you can stuff them in a day pack and go in anywhere in their light and easy carrying, right?
Yeah, I'm a sitter. I know you're a stalker, right? I'm a sitter, but because I don't have your kind of eyesight, first of all. So but I don't. Would you find your area and will you sit, or would you continue to go? No, would you put in a few hours and then say, okay, I'm going to move a little bit?
I move all day, basically. I sit a bit, but basically the only time I sit is for breaks, for one thing. Like I'll sit down and have a snack. I'll find a nice vantage point in a good deer activity, and I won't quit until I do. I won't stop until I feel like
you feel like you got something. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll sit there and have my break of typically half an hour, or my lunch, and half an hour, and that's about it. And then I move on, and
that's our focus today. Like I said,
yeah.
When I see your spidey sense tingling, I'm trying to get a sense of what's going on around me as well, and kind of feel that same thing, so that I start to pick it up. When you say, not, every once in a while you might stumble into a rub, but that kind of thing, and maybe, even to track the rub line and then make your best guess, right? Again, right?
Yeah, and this is what we found in here, I was showing Mark where we, the main travel corridor, and we found some rub line, and we moved in behind it, and we found, in the next segment of heavy cover over, downwind of it, there's some more. And the important thing is, not to, you need to, typically, I don't walk the rub line anymore. I did in years back just to learn how they worked. I walked them a fair amount, but a large buck will not tolerate that much activity on his rub line. So basically, I stay off it now, and a few yards off it so that you can see it, and definitely don't touch it. Don't mess around with it, and note where it is, and set up for it.
Oh, darn, okay.
And basically, if I'm hunting, I'm stalking. I'm hunting near rub lines a lot. I know where they are. I've got areas that I've hunted for 40 years, so
that's interesting.
I walk that area close to them, but not on them, and try to keep in reasonably interspersed cover. And
it's interesting because I found one, and of course then I followed it. Best I could, tree to tree. Probably blew that buck out of there already, right?
You can, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's.
But again, these kind of conversations, right, go right into the memory bank, and I'm like, okay. So once you find it, kind of decipher, I guess, which way it's going, and then, move away, right? Not walk it, right? Yeah. So
the important thing is so we found a nice area here, and Mark's probably going to be hunting that main area, and I'm gonna spend some time further back in. Because there's always another area, adjacent to the one you're on, and you can find a nice heavy rub line or heavily used deer runs, and in one area it's heavy, and it tails, and then the activity tails off on the ends, and they branch off and go to different areas, and then really who knows, you know what's there unless you go have a look. You know, there's another area there, and there's more bucks and
The stuff that we discovered.
yeah.
Harry, we're on a trail, we were walking towards that spot that elevated spot, and all of a sudden, like I said, you all of a sudden just said, well, you're not going to see anything unless and we went overland, and all of a sudden, boom, we weren't even I don't even think we were even 20 meters into when you had your first rub of, I think maybe it was a moose, but, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of moose
But
activity, winter moose activity in that.
But
area
yeah,
as
but
well.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just that quickly, I know we walked across that marshy, creeky area, and all of a sudden you just said, well, if they're coming, they're going to stay to this side of it. And again,
Yeah.
boom, we're on them. We're on, animal activity in about 20 meters into the woods. Boom, there's the first sign.
Yeah, and it's and then from there, it never hurts to excuse me, especially in off season. It doesn't hurt to re-explore your area,
Walk some woods.
and expand on it. And lots of guys are content with one good spot, and that's the reality for a lot of people that are hunting on private land, and where it's where you have limited land use. I've been fortunate to hunt in areas where I get considerable amount of acreage I can use, and basically I'm not afraid to explore, and that's one of my advantages as a ground hunter. Is you get to see a lot of ground. I hunt and scout continually all day, just about every day. So
Yeah.
I learned to, I've got large areas that I use, and I'm seeing bucks here, I'm seeing bucks there, and I just incorporate those into my circuit.
I know.
I pick up the wind, decide on the wind direct and on in the morning or whatever when I go out. I check the wind and I think a little bit before I commit myself. Everybody asks me, "Where are you going tomorrow?" I said, "Well, I know I'm going to a general area, but I don't know how I'm going there until the wind's blowing."
Yeah.
And then I just do that downwind end of that area first, circuit, and just move through, and so I'm not blowing the whole area out at once.
I know, because I know you mentioned
Yeah.
blow down trees. You gotta, it's any little dark thicket. You gotta be watching, because you said I've seen so many stand up.
Yeah.
Right there, boom, they're there, right?
There's deer. There's a lot more deer in the bush than you think there are,
Right.
and lots of times I from hunting and from working in the bush, running equipment, you learn there's a lot of deer laying around in the bush that you don't see until you get right on top of them.
Right.
And with equipment, lots of times one will stand up and you'll see a deer, and
Yeah,
and then there's 5 more there.
I think I know you mentioned this to me, is, you want to hunt your way to the stand. I think I do that I have a destination in mind. I'm trucking to the stand.
Yeah.
And, where we're going to go later today, you walk, there's some spots, and you're like, you gotta hunt your way in here. You just can't predict where they're going to be. They could be bedded down on the way in.
Well, that's basically how I got into stalking continually almost every day. I was a tree stand hunter, just like many people are in Eastern North America, and I started picking up the odd deer incidentally, moving stand to stand, or or looking for a new stand, and then I started, hey, this is a lot of fun.
Okay,
and this is what I like doing.
I know you mentioned to me, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but you said like most, percentage wise, the deer you caught stalking versus sitting, and for you,
Yeah, I've taken 2/3 or more than 2/3 of my deer
stalking.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I always thought that was interesting to me.
Which is, that's for, if you've ever hunted eastern hardwoods or, in the eastern part of North America, it's probably some of the most difficult stalking that you're going to come across. There's there's just a crisscross mash of limbs everywhere. It's almost impossible to put your foot down without stepping on a stick, and many people would find that discouraging, but I mean, the deer are doing the same thing, and they're not absolutely quiet either, and I've just learned that it's, to move like a deer, basically. And
There's a method.
move
there.
like a feeding deer.
Right.
and they'll accept your presence.
Right
You
on.
know?
No, there's a lesson there too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another whole.
Yeah.
There.
Stay out of the wind and move like a feeding deer. That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
So it gets you started, and you know, yeah, they make noise too, and basically I just one premise I use is that if I can hear that noise, a deer can hear it at 5 times that distance. You know, so whatever you're making, noise you're making, if you can hear it, they can hear it at, you know, 50 yards, no problem. And if it's loud, they can hear it at 500. It's just, you know, if you pop a large top or something, and that'll get their attention. But they're out there doing the same thing too, and it's the pattern and cadence of your movements that are more important than actually how much noise you're making. I do try to be really quiet at times too, but it's difficult all day to be silent. It's too. It's not relaxing, and then once you lose that relaxation, your muscles and that, it becomes work, and you get tight and end up making more noise, right? So it's a matter of relaxing and taking your time at it. So, but we're gonna get out and we're gonna get out on the ground and film the rest of this segment, and we'll show you on the ground, and then we're going to go into this area, into this huge area of old beaver dams and marshes and whatnot, and we'll show you that today, and we'll get out there and on the ground and explain the uses of cover, and you know how I set up off the main deer activity, and you know, it's not necessarily to be in the most open area where you can see the most, but to be in the right area where you can see the right travel corridors.
Yeah, I've done that too,
Yeah.
where I set up on, you know, on where I can see a big long expanse, and you say, well, and I know you had this conversation, maybe we'll have it again, but you kind of say, well, you might see something coming through, but they're probably not going to run into the open cover, you know, open area where you can get a good look.
Yeah.
You know, especially
possibly when the full rut is on, those big bucks
he'll make a mistake.
Go point A to B, but typically when they're in survival mode, you won't see them out there. And and it's interesting. I've got guys in my camp that are very experienced hunters, and we're all a little different. And my father, for instance, like to cut off large expanses of hardwood, and he had good luck doing it. And I have another uncle that he just sits in the thickest, dirtiest spot he can find, and is content to see 25 yards on either side of him. And he shoots, and they both shoot a lot of deer. So it's just,
oh man,
you know, it's what you get used to, right?
Okay, so that didn't help me. I don't know where I'm sitting right now, but
well,
but
yeah, I try to, you know, I mean, if I'm sitting, I like to be close enough to that travel corridor where I figure the buck's going to be moving in heavy cover, but you can hedge your bets a little bit, so that you can get a peek out into the open areas too, and you know.
Yeah.
And quite often those younger bucks are moving in that area as well, but.
Oh man.
Or bucks are chasing does. Once the rut's on, that's another thing I really watch for is over the years, you know, if you see places where there's breeding activity and bucks are chasing does, you know, keep those in mind, because they're just gems, and I incorporate as many of those as I can in my stalking circuit. Yeah, so we're just continuing on with this scouting mission here, and you can see in the background is basically an area where we've come into this area from the downwind end, and that's basically going to be our general approach in here. And I was just pointing out to Mark, you know, possible ambush spots, and the typical thing is people want to be out where they can see the greatest amount of area possible, and it's a natural human tendency to have a nice view, but you need to take into account that the bucks are probably not going to be out in that open area that often, they're going to be moving in the cover in the distance, or you know, on the edges of that area. So, and we're walking in, and so here's a rub right here, you know, where they spend a little bit of time out in the open. But typically, I'm not gonna hunt that too much, or I'll maybe include that in there, but that's not going to be my main focus, because that's occasional, and it could be small buck, and it could be in the middle of the night, you know, typically. So if you want to just pan around, Mark, you can show them over here. I like this edge over here with this intermittent cover. You know, small saplings. It's not bad walking, but it's enough cover that bucks are comfortable. That's you know, the other thing I'm looking for. We're going to try and cover that. I was just suggesting that over here is a nice spot for just a natural little hide. What we have here is, you know, we've got an old beaver dam edge here running along here, and so in wetter times it'll still be dry, and good chances are going to want to cross there. But there's a nice little spot right in here. You can get in the shadows and up in some green stuff, and sit tight in there. Cover that. You do have a little bit of an open area here you can cover, and as I mentioned, that heavy brush line over there that you can shoot into as well. But what we have here is successive beaver dams. And there's another area below us that's you know, similar to this, and we can watch both of them. Plus, good chances that you know, your buck is going to be moving in this heavier cover right here during the day. So we'll just walk over to the hide here. You know, and if you want to come right on up, Mark.
Yep.
The water's filtering in from one section to another, and we got a little bit of a spring right here as well. You know, and that's important. I'll pick a spot near water, and it doesn't take much as long as there's a consistent flow that it's going to be there. They'll keep coming, using it. But that's another thing I don't overlook is that dominant buck is going to stake out water, and typically you get a feeding area, you know, maybe a couple different types of mast, and some browse, green browse or hardwood browse or whatever, and you pick heavy cover downwind of a water source or near it, and you're going to be in the money. I'll guarantee it. He's in the area somewhere. So this is a little work we could cut a little hide in here if you want to stand hunt. Come on right in and show them what we're looking at. Eh? Come right in next to me and stand around, and have a peek out here, Mark.
I know you mentioned
with the camera and that.
You like the darkness.
I like being in the shadows, if possible. You know, it does a lot to hide your movements in a screen. You could sit in here quite comfortably, just cut yourself a little shooting lane. Here and there, don't open it up too much. You can see them coming through the screen, and then just have a couple of clean places to shoot, which is important too. You don't want to be shooting in the trying to shoot through brush is not a high percentage thing at all. So here we'll just pop out here again. Another thing I was just explaining to Mark, I was showing them here is a bit of an old paw right here, or scrape. I mean, you know, and it's covered in leaves right now, but there's obviously it's been pawed out, and like, you know, and I suspected there's a bit of an old trail here now, and you might even see it on the ground. We've got moose and deer using the same area. These are moose droppings here, but you got to know the difference is in rub and browse. The browse on the moose are browsing high, but the bucks will be rubbing low. This is an old rub here as well. And, here's one of the main rubs, or pardon me, the main runs. And it's not, like I said, this is not we're not a high traffic area here. It's you know, it's been used traditionally, and that's sometimes that's what you know, that's where you start. And I found that big bucks will be in the same area. They'll stake out that territory and use it on a yearly basis. And just because there's not a whole lot of sign there doesn't mean they're not there. And the younger deer will make a lot more of a disturbance, typically. At times the big bucks do too, but I've seen it early in the season. You know, and not quite often. They're there, but they're not showing quite as much sometimes. So. And another thing I mentioned to Mark too is that when you're walking around and you feel you know, you see some sign, and the firmness of the ground is another indicator. If you step off the side of the trail, it's that much more spongy. You know, and you get on a trail that's been used traditionally, even though it's covered in leaves, it has a firmness to it that you can, you know, you can feel that with your feet as well, and that's a gauge of you know, how long it's been used traditionally. So if we wander in here a bit more, and pan around, I'd come right up to where I am, Mark, and pan around, and this is a good indication here. What I like about this. This is the type of area that I will hunt myself. I'll walk through, and if you look in it, you're in a bit of a, what would the
depression,
or term for,
like a depression or a dip, eh?
Camouflage and can cover movement, and it's defile, you know, or a depression, and basically see how it's just scooped out, arced out like this. And imagine yourself being a deer with your head maybe at this level, you know, a buck's head at that level, and most of his body's concealed in here, and with just his head peeking out, and he can see out into the openings on either side, and move through this with confidence. And it's good walking, yet it's there's enough sapling cover that they're comfortable. And lo and behold, here, you know, we found this morning. We wandered in here, you know, and here you go. Here I'm touching it, which is a big mistake. It's spring right now. I'm not too concerned about it, but approaching fall, I'd never touch that. And it's just a bad move, you know. But you know, that's last year's rub, and so he's here. And we're gonna keep looking, and we'll maybe get an indication as to his size if we can find the right sign. I'll go over that as well. But we're in the right area, and like I said to Mark, I said that's a good place to start here. And maybe we hit the jackpot, but we're gonna look around a bit too. And sometimes there's better places not that far off. You know, it's worth a look, and this is the time to do it in the spring. you know, and you're not disturbing his rutting activity too much. I mean, and come fall, you don't want to be in here wandering around. Come in, you know it's here. Have some confidence in your scouting skill, and come in and set up, and don't wander around too much, or you'll tip him off. He will see you or cut your sign or your scent somewhere along the line, and if it's a big mature buck, you may not see him again. I have spots that I hunt where I've seen real big bucks. I won't go in before season. I know they're there. I go in and I camp. You know, maybe I'll stand and sit and stand. They're exceptionally hard to stalk, and but I'll stand, put my shift in, you know, and then I'll have a little look around before I disturb the area. You know, because maybe you're not in the right spot, but exactly. But I've seen it before where often it's your first entry into the area that is your best opportunity, and you'll see some nice bucks, and then once they pick you up, they'll start avoiding the area, and then you got to readjust. So, well, it's yeah. So Mark and I were just having a conversation here, and you know, we came in here and, you know, just assessing the terrain, and we figured out, you know, this is probably a good spot to look, and you know, and lo and behold, you have a good rub. You know, and you know, you might have hit. This might be it. You know, like we're gonna look at it, and maybe this is the right spot. However, I mean, there's more to it, and we'll definitely keep this in mind, and we're gonna have another look around. And just as an aside, I meant to mention too, coming in today, you know, you go out scouting, and if you're not wearing your hunting clothes, your camo or whatever, at least wear, you know, clothing that's of
blends into
mid-tone colors, greens and grays. You know, they don't attract a lot of attention, and you know, and so that you're not being very visible as you move around. You know, if he's in the area, the buck's in the area, you got a chance you're going to slip by him. And if I'm really concerned about it, it's an area I know. Once I, you know, closer to season, I know there's a big buck around. Lots of times I'll wear my hunting gear, and I'll wear a face veil, gloves, the whole works. You know, so basically, so like what we're saying here is so this might be the area, but if the general sense of this terrain here is these are old ridges, you know, and there's a successive beaver dam. There's one above us, and there's one below us. But the general sense is they're running this way. They're running due north or right into the wind, northwest. So now, like I said, this might be it. This might be a good spot to stand, and we'll definitely keep it in mind. But we're going to look around, because somewhere in here there's going to be a cross trail that'll tie. There's going to be a spot like this here, and then there's one running parallel to it above us and one below us. So somewhere in here there's going to be a cross trail or some topographical feature like a pond, or, you know, a ridge that ties them in, and is going to make it maybe a higher percentage spot. So
he can escape and right. He's got his out route somewhere.
Mean, and maybe on any given day he's running another one of these rub lines, a parallel rub line, and you don't see him. So
hey,
we're going to see if we can find a common tie to them that maybe will increase our opportunities of seeing
the pine,
that big buck, right? So
the pine. Remember you told me about the pine. What do you notice about that rub versus another?
This is a balsam fir. You know, it's
that's why I called it a pine.
Yeah.
The true woodsman.
It's similar to a spruce. It looks like a spruce, maybe, but with flat needles. They're actually the fir family. Hemlock fir, Douglas fir, all those, you know, come together. But anyway, this just as an aside, you see a buck that prefers to rub a conifer versus one that prefers to rub a hardwood. The one that's rubbing conifer is going to have sap on his antlers, and he's probably likely to be more of a darker colored rack, you know, up to chocolate, and versus the ones that are out and rubbing. Like if they prefer hardwood, quite often they got almost a white antler, you know, that really shows up. But, just something to keep in mind. They're all indicators of the type of terrain they like to have their rub line in. You know, when you see a dark colored rack, good indication that buck likes to be in the conifers versus open hardwoods, right? So,
Yeah.
so if you're trying to find them again, well, something to keep in mind. So. Yeah, I was just pointing this out to Mark here. There's a little turn off the main run in here, and what I look for, it's maybe difficult to see, but traditionally speaking, you can see the depression. There's a little old edge of a beaver dam right here, and you can see depression on both sides of it. And typically, if that was a run that was used by, you know, multiple does and fawns, it would be cut down solid. And typically what I look for with bucks, where little places where they turn off their rub lines or whatever, is these depressions, and they're, you know, it's a step sort of thing, and it's similar to a bear run, except for you'll find like a bear, where bears have been, a bear trail is, they're more of an oval shape because of the shape of their feet, right? But you know, a buck, he'll just step here and here, and leave a more of a rounded spot. And as we're walking along, you know, there's some bit of an old scrape, and then we're going to move on up here. Mark, I just want to, there's a little bit of a pinch point across this marsh. We're just going to check, because good place for crossing, you know. So yeah, so like I was just saying, we're going to check this strip of cover crossing this marsh here, and for sign, and sure enough, there's a rub over here, older one. We'll just walk through it here a little bit and have a look at it. There was a bit of a trail where we turned out. Another old rub. Well, that's probably at least 3-4 years old. It's showing dead wood, right? Another thing, direction of travel. You know, basically, look on them. If they're rubbed on one side, well, that's direction of travel. And if they're rubbed on both sides, sometimes they're, you know, or all around. They're either going both ways, or it's a place they're spending some time. I call them like a rub line lookout, where they stop and, you know, they spend some time there and watching, right? So they're messing around, and well, we'll just keep checking things out here. This isn't it's just showing signs of use, but it's not, you know, maybe we're not seeing like tons of deer sign here, but it's some of the best in the area that we have. So we're doing the best we can with it. And some areas are harder to assess sign than others, because it's sort of an open filter through feeding area, you know. At times guys are fooled by that too, where they're not seeing the sign they think that they should be, but it's spread out, you know, and I think that's what we're dealing with here. There's a lot of intermittent cover here, and just, it's a browsing area, but they'll still concentrate their movements where they're comfortable in the right cover